Let's see. Do you have any prior experience working in a law firm?
Nope,
Did you perhaps study some of the techniques your sister used?
not a bit.
Do you have any knowledge at all about law?
None whatsoever.
Maya, I'm starting to wonder what exactly you can do for me.
Oh, lots of things. I'll water Charlie each time you forget. I'd clean the litter if you had a pet. I'll keep the couch warm whenever you're gone.
What
And
couch?
sometimes I may mow the lawn.
What lawn?
I promise your remote won't gather dust, and that your TV trays never will rust. I don't need gratitude or a high pay.
You're
Just
hired.
feed me 4 meals every day.
You're fired.
And I'll be there when you need a friend. I'll be there to support you. And in the courtroom, I'll help you defend. Every time they outsmart you,
Hey.
I'll provide a pleasant mood. All that we have, we can share. You lend your money, your home, and your food. And it's true that for you, I'll be there. Sounds like a nice arrangement, eh, Nick?
Well,
With me around, you'll have nothing to fear. I'll
don't
be
quite
your
know what
watchdog
to
when
say.
burglars are near. They'll say
I'm
you'll wag your
a
nuts, I'll make
decent
them
lawyer,
pay, 'cause nobody
but
fights like a
fatherhood's not my
man.
forte. As a caretaker, well, frankly, I reek. I had a goldfish, it died in a week. I babysat poorly way back in the day. They paid me to keep me away. I can't see myself undertaking this task, but please don't think I'm a jerk.
To have you around is the one thing I ask, and I've got a hunch this is going to work.
Now, wait a minute. Are you planning on setting up a tent in front of the fax machine, or?
Of course not. I'm not gonna sleep here. That'd just be weird. I'll only be working. And maybe spending my free time here, watching your TV, eating all your food.
That's not exactly sweetening the deal.
Well, there is one other reason. This note. I found it in my stuff a couple weeks ago. Mia must have slipped it in the last time I visited.
If anything should happen, take care of Phoenix for me.
She knew how risky her pursuit of Red White was.
So, she trusts us to watch out for each other.
Yeah, and the truth is, when Mia passed on, I felt all alone and torn up inside. All hope was lost, and I had no shoulder to cry on. Then you came along, and I feel like I'm home when you're at my side. I deeply needed someone who I could rely on. And if you're with me, we'll make it through anytime and anywhere. I can stay strong and I'll show that it's true, just as long as I know you'll be there.
All right. Well, I'm convinced we can give it a shot. Make sure you give everything that you've got. So I'll see you every weekday at 9. Now just sign right here on the line. And I'll be there and I'll watch your back. Don't despair, I'm behind you.
If I need a tight one,
Or I need a brat, I'll know just where to find you.
through thick and thin, we'll shine the light.
A defensive powerhouse pair. Okay, you win, you'll start tonight.
I knew that you would make it right.
For truth and justice we will fight. And for you, I will be there.
Now let's go celebrate with some burgers. Your treat?
Aw, aren't they so cute? Welcome! Welcome, my friends, to The Great Ace Attorney 2 Resolve. Yes, I know I did not stream the rest of the game here. So, confession time. I have not played very much. Well, so I've beaten the first Great Ace Attorney game. I've only played the first case of the second one. And I really want to finish it because I want to not have to worry about spoilers. And I mean, I'm kind of already a little bit spoiled about some of the things, but, you know, that's fine. I was spoiled about the trilogy, basically, before I played it, but that didn't deter my enjoyment of it. So, I am very much looking forward to having a good old time with our pals. But yeah, it's been a while. So, I remember... Whoops. That's not what I meant to do. Hold up. Yes, but I also want to leave. Yes. Yes. Can I leave? Let me leave. Yes. Do not save. Yes. I have already played the first case of the second game, and it was freaking awesome, and I guessed the plot, like, right away. Which is not a problem. It was fun. So, we're going to start with episode 2, The Memoirs of the Clouded Kokoro. Which, you know, this is a callback to the adventure of the Clouded Kokoro here. But I'm not really sure we talked about what the Clouded Kokoro was. So maybe we'll find out this time. So yeah, so we did this one. Now we're going to start on this one. Let me go grab some water, actually. Since I imagine I'm going to be doing a lot of talking and, you know, reading these characters. So, let's do this. Also, we might have some folks coming in later. We'll see. Episode 2. The Memoirs of the Clouded Kokoro.
It was a ghastly tale of a winter's night. One of an invisible killer and a crime perpetrated on the pavement along Briar Road. As the victim lay at death's door, the mystery of just who had stabbed the young lady from behind had been resolved. But no sooner had my friend saved that Eastern Exchange student from his harrowing plight, than in the dim, flickering shadows of gaslight did a second bizarre crime rend the stillness of that very night.
Ooh.
I dare say most can still recall the sensational headlines of the day. Haunted apartment of death, the condemned criminal's curse, the dread demon of coal gas. Yet, though the great detective had at once discerned the truth upon his arrival at the scene, it only proved to be the overture that announced the rising of the curtain on a most tragic play.
Bum, bum, bum. My name is Ryunosuke Naruodo. I'm a fledgling lawyer, just starting out on my journey. 6 months ago, I arrived as a visiting student of law, having made the long voyage across the sea from the Empire of Japan to here, London, England. And on the way, in quite extraordinary circumstances, I made the acquaintance of a world-famous detective. Hello! Currently, I reside in the attic of the detective's own lodgings, from where I run my legal consultancy of sorts. I've successfully defended a number of clients in Britain's highest court, the Old Bailey. But since a particularly grueling and unforgettable legal battle 4 months ago now, I haven't returned to the courtroom. In truth, I lost my right to return. That epic trial was just one small part of an epic tale, a tale which was now about to awaken from slumber. Thanks to a letter that arrived this morning from my homeland. Let's see. What a delicious smell wafting up the stairs. It must be nearly time for breakfast. I better go down to Mr. Sholmes' suite and say good morning to the great detective and his flatmate. the 30th of August, 7:28 a.m., Sholmes' suite. Bruno, good. I was just about to call up to you. The bacon's ready. Good morning, Iris. It smells delicious, as usual. Before we eat, though, I have some news. This morning... Shh! Not another word, Mr. Naruhodo. This could be just the abstruse thing for my pre-breakfast stagnation-repelling mental stimulation, my dear fellow. Morning to you too, Mr. Sholmes. Ah, yes. I see. So that's it. Oh, Sholmes jump scare. The truth is as clear to me as day. My faculties of observation have revealed it again. What are you talking about? You, Mr. Naruhodo, you have this very morning met with a surprise. Well, is that not the case? Really, my dear fellow, it barely warrants explanation. Firstly, your hair is particularly unkempt, somewhat reminiscent of a bird's nest. Secondly, you have neglected to fasten the third button on your jacket. Clearly, when considered together, these two facts point to you having been flustered this morning. Can I talk now? But of course! I don't look for admiration, you understand. My hair all the way since I first met you. Oh, it has? And the button was ripped off last night, if you remember. By you. Hurley pulled your button off? Ah, yes, I recall the incident now. It was after supper, was it not? As the evening advanced, I picked up my violin and began to play the wailing notes of a haunting tune. But then, to my utter dismay, the third string snapped! Why did it have to happen? Why? Little wonder, then, that in my vexation, I grabbed the first button I saw and ripped it from its proper place. Well, I'd like it back now, please. It's troubling me that I can't fasten my jacket. And it's troubling me that you expect me to know where it is! Somewhere thereabouts on the floor, one presumes. Helpful. What matters at the present time, my dear fellow, is simply whether or not my deduction was unerring. But Hurley, Bruno said when he came in, didn't he? I had a surprise this morning. Well, that really is a surprise. Yes, this man is the pride of the British Empire, the famous consulting detective, Mr. Herlock Sholmes. There can't be a single person in the world who doesn't know his name. Alright then, enough of this silly conversation. Come and eat this bacon before it goes cold. And I have a new herbal tea for you to try too. My latest special blend. And here we have Iris Wilson, Mr. Sholmes' lodger and companion. A truly exceptional young girl who's the author of his highly successful serialization here in London. Yes, The Adventures of Herlock Sholmes, as published in Rand's magazine. So, Mr. Naruhodo, won't you put us out of our misery? What surprised you this fine morning? Well, I received a letter from Japan. Oh, from Susie, you mean? Was it? Really? That's right, and she had some rather startling news, in fact. Ah, intriguing indeed. You must tell us all about it over breakfast. Oh yes, what fun. Alright, let's look around first. What's on this board? Ah yes, this is where you note down ideas, isn't it, Iris? What's in the melting pot today? The blue carbuncle. Yes, it's from a case of theft that Hurley solved ages ago. The theft of the precious stone. A carbuncle is another name for a garnet, you see, especially if it's cut with a rounded top. The carbuncle ate itself. Oh, really? And this garnet was blue, was it? Well, that's the thing. They're usually red. No blue garnets have ever been discovered. Oh. So who knows what the stolen gemstone actually was? That's the real mystery of the case. A proper Herlock Sholmes conundrum, huh? Alright. I could just examine everything. It's been a hot second. I could type with my eyes shut, you know. I can believe it. The deadline's approaching. You sound like a Gatling gun. That reminds me of a dream I had the other day. It was such a funny one. It woke me, actually. I was typing for a whole hour in the pitch black, but I didn't make a single mistake. It's incredible. But then when it got light, I found out there wasn't any paper in the machine. Oh, I wonder if I'd actually been typing at all. I think you might have just fallen asleep on the job. There are so many different bottles up there on that charming little set of white shelves. Oh, do be careful, Runa. You mustn't try the contents of any of those bottles, even if you're hungry. I wouldn't do something stupid like that. I'm not a child, you know. Well, I wish I could say the same for Hurley. The other day, he polished off a full bottle of one of my alkaloids. He what? He said he was hungry. I'll be extra careful. Tea set. I look forward to finding out what aroma your tea will have, Iris, every single day. Ah, well, I infuse a different concoction of herbs from the garden every time, so I sent her the same twice. When you call it a concoction, it sounds more like a science experiment than something for tea time. Oh yes, that's because different blends can have very different properties. Some calm you down, some make you feel jolly, some give you energy. Today's particular blend is something quite special, so you're really in for a treat. That sounds ominous. These are different pieces of evidence from cases you've solved, aren't they, Mr. Sholmes? Not quite, Mr. Naruhodo, not quite. These trinkets are a selection from cases I've solved with particular aplomb. They are souvenirs of my success. Memories, Mr. Naruhodo, memories. Really? So tell me about the case in which the bust of Napoleon featured. I forget. Memories, he says. Wonderful, Mr. Sholmes, wonderful. Alright. When it gets to this time of year, Londoners seem to leave their hearths alight all day long. And I love it. There's something very relaxing about watching the flames flit and dance about. But a fireplace in times of summertime, in days of summertime, is a waste of space. Really, no use at all. Rather like a great detective in days of no crimes and no criminals, Hurley. But consider this. Instead of a fireplace, a frost place. That's my latest idea. An extraordinary hearth from which emanates a cool breeze in the hot summer months. What do you think? I think if you invented such a thing, your name would go down in history. The principle is extremely similar. One must, of course, light a cold fire in the hearth. Yes, of course, brilliant. The trouble is, none of the fires I've built ever burn cold. How it taunts me. So, as you British say, it's a bit of a damp squib? Okay. Now the chest. Ah yes, the huge metal chest with the lace cloth lid on it, being used as a table for tea and coffee. It's very sturdy, that's for sure, and firmly locked shut. That chest contains my father's detailed records of Hurley's many cases. Yes, so I've been led to believe, though personally I've never actually seen inside. And that's the way it will stay. Those papers are a secret between Daddy and me. If you go opening it uninvited, you might find yourself being bitten. What, is there a beast inside there or something? Books, papers, scientific implements, these shelves are stuffed to the gunnels. Miss Usato wouldn't be able to help herself if she were here. She can't stand mess. Susie might not be able to stand mess, but she wouldn't dare touch those shelves. Oh, why not? Everything's in intricate balance. Hurley spends ages on it. If you were to touch even one thing, the whole lot would come tumbling down. Susie noticed it was a very delicate arrangement right from the outset. You make it sound like a meeting of great minds. But the truth is, Mr. Sholmes just needs to tidy up. Okay. There's his famous violin. Ah yes, Mr. Sholmes' faithful musical companion. Wasn't this violin made by somebody famous? Yes, it's a Stradivarius. Though I'm afraid you'd have to save up for 100 years before you could afford one, Runa. Didn't you buy it for a song, Mr. Sholmes? I found it in a pawnbrokery among the forfeited articles. It clearly said Stradivarius on the label. What? The ignorant broker had no idea of its true value, you see. So I paid a mere 55 shillings for it. Yes, I have something of a turn for shopping. Herlock Sholmes, bargain hunter. But is it really a Stradivarius then? But of course, my dear fellow, it says so on the label. I think perhaps the ignorant broker had something of a turn for selling. That machine really is imposing, isn't it? But I can never remember its name. Hurley calls it his Great Analysis Scope. It can analyze anything at all. That doesn't really help me. What does analyzing something even mean? Ah, an extremely astute question, Mr. Naruhodo. Sorry? Well, as Iris said, my machine here spits out analysis results of anything with which you care to present it. But how to interpret those results, that's the key. And I confess I have no idea. Clearly, I'm going to have to construct a great analysis scope to solve the problem. That might not help. Alright, I think that's everything that I can scan. Okay. Oh yeah, here's what I've got from the court record. The armband I inherited from Kazuma. Identifies the wearer as the defense lawyer throughout the Empire of Japan. We've got Susato, Iris, Herlock. Alright. Cool. Look at my attorney's badge. Oh, Mr. Sholmes, about this. Shh! Not another word! Ah, yes, I see. This would be a collar for a breed of miniature canine with a particularly long neck, and for winter use. Actually, it's the armband I always wear that symbolizes my role as a defense lawyer. Precisely! Which leads us to but one conclusion. Your arm is, in fact, the particularly long neck of a miniature canine. I'm starting to wish I'd never shown him this now. The man's barking mad. Alrighty. I don't think I can move anywhere. Yeah, just back to my room. Alright. Let's talk. This is the letter that arrived from Japan this morning by international post. Oh, how lovely! Look at Susie's beautiful writing. I wish I could read it. And how is your judicial assistant faring, may I ask? She's very well, thank you. In fact, according to what she's written, she actually appeared as a lawyer at the Japanese Supreme Court and won a case. Ah, really? Oh, isn't she wonderful? A cut above your good self, my dear fellow. I've won cases too, you know. Apparently, Mr. Natsume appeared in the trial as a witness. Natsume. No, I don't recall that name. Of course you do! We helped the man, twice! You know, in those 2 cases that took place on Briar Road 6 months ago? Now that's curious. This was something I noticed from the ending of the last case, in which we only saw one of those cases. So maybe this is a flashback back to before the events of Case 5 of the first game. Ah! The mustached twitchy man with the somewhat feline eyes. And the mustache. He didn't have 2 mustaches, Hurley. Yes, who could forget those 2 cases? They made a very deep impression on me. Although I must confess the details are a little hazy now. A very deep impression they made on you, clearly. So what was this startling news penned by Miss Susato? Do you remember the case of the haunted lodgings, Mr. Sholmes? Yes, it's very interesting, you know. I don't feel entirely uncertain that a case of that nature did not occur. He's totally forgotten, then. Anyway, in her letter, Miss Susato asked that we read over her case notes again and investigate further. Though it took place half a year ago. For what purpose? Because of something Mr. Natsume said to her, apparently. Yeah. He suggested the real reason why she was called back to Japan so suddenly might have something to do with that case of the haunted lodgings. Wait, I think I missed something. Hold on. Case notes again. The real reason has something to do with that case. On Mr. Natsume's return to Japan, Miss Susato's father questioned him about the case, she says. And something Mr. Natsume said appeared to trouble Professor Mikotoba, prompting him to send that telegram. Okay, sorry. I need to, internalize this. Mr. Sato's father questioned him about the case. Something he said appeared to trouble him. Okay. Oh, that case, yes. It was very strange, wasn't it? Yes. I had compiled the whole story into a nice, neat manuscript ready for publication, too. But then Hurley here was all funny about it, remember? He was very mean. That story must not be published, you said. Very mysteriously as well. Oh yeah, I think I remember that. They were talking about that at the beginning of the 5th case. Really? I said that? Are you sure? Do you perhaps know something about it as well, Mr. Sholmes? About why Miss Usato was suddenly told four mouths ago that she had to return to Japan? It's been 4 months now since we sailed Susie off of Dover. It was such a shock, wasn't it? The way she just suddenly announced that she had to go to Japan. Indeed it was, due to a telegram she received from her homeland, I believe. That's right, telling her to return urgently. Yes, because her father had passed away. No, it just said he was suffering from a high fever, the cause of which was unknown. He's not dead. But according to this letter, that news about her father's fever was just a ruse. A ruse? So Susie's daddy lied to her so she'd make the voyage back home. Why would he do that? I have to admit, I have absolutely no idea. But she believes it's almost certainly related to the case of the haunted lodgings. Summoning her back to Japan so suddenly like that. I wonder what Miss Usato's father is hiding. Hurley, do you know what it's all about? No. I thought I could do the one-handed thing, but I guess not. Oh. Well, who can say? What? But you said... Please, I have engagements, my dear fellow. My calendar is quite surprisingly full today. An astringent analysis of the matter would be excessive, I feel, even if I were quite at leisure. So, man the fort in my absence, won't you, Iris? I will, Hurley, don't worry. See you later. Scuttered off rather quickly there. So clearly he knows more than he's letting on. I think perhaps Professor Mikotoba isn't the only person hiding something here. Soseki-san was involved in 2 cases, but only one of them was forbidden from being published. By, of all people, Mr. Sholmes. So that's interesting. So at the beginning of the 5th case, they were like, "Hey, the case that Mr. Natsume was involved in, I have it ready for publication." And we think it's the one that we just did, which was case 4. But this is saying actually it was a different one. Very interesting. Aha! I found them at last. Iris, are they... The notes about the case? That's right. Susie and I compiled them together. The case of the haunted lodgings. Do you want to read them, Runa? Absolutely. Thank you, Iris. I have no idea what secrets could still be hiding in the shadows of this case. But perhaps if I read over the notes again, something might come to light. That's the spirit! Alright. Time for an extended flashback, I guess. And so... Iris and I decided to read over the case notes again together. Everything from what happened, to our investigation and the fierce battle in court that followed. Reliving every detail in an extended flashback. I just need to find a clue, and I have all the time in the world. Because of course... I'm no longer allowed to practice law in the courts of Great Britain. Did that happen at the end of the last game? I don't remember. It has been a hot second. Or that might be something that like we don't know about yet. It was 6 months ago. A mysterious incident that unfolded on the wintry streets of London. Let me check what was actually said. Thank you, Wendy. Appreciate that. This is literally the... This makes me laugh, and it reminds me of, like, the Peter Griffin dead meme. A young woman was found lying on the snowy pavement of Briar Road with a knife in her back. I remember this very well. Fortunately, her life was spared, but she was unconscious for several days following the incident. The fog was thick, and nobody saw her attack her, but by a cruel twist of fate, a visiting Japanese student was walking behind her at the time and was duly arrested. That man was Soseki-san, and the man who effected his arrest was Mr. Sholmes. Believing in our compatriot's innocence, Susato-san and I decided to represent Soseki-san in court. And after a grueling trial of many twists and turns, we finally managed to prove his innocence. Joyful, joyous, jubilant jubilation! Was the man's reaction after the trial. But his jubilant jubilation was short-lived. I don't actually have, like, established voices for a lot of these characters yet. I've got to figure it out. We received a telegram from Mr. Sholmes the following morning. The victim of the Briar Road stabbing has regained consciousness. Hurry to Bard's at once. So Susato-san and I summoned a hansom and headed immediately to the hospital. 21st February, 5:30 a.m. Wow, that was early. St. Bartholomew's Hospital Recovery Ward. There you are, at last! Good morning, Mr. Sholmes. I think not. Oh! You're late! What on earth took you so long? Your telegram only arrived at 5 o'clock, Mr. Sholmes, and it's a 20-minute ride to the hospital. That's right, and it's 5:30 now. I think we made very good time. The time is utterly irrelevant. The fact is, I've been waiting for what has felt like an eternity. In point of fact, I myself was awoken at 4 this morning by a telegram boy. And feeling it was somewhat unjust that I alone had been roused at such an hour, I sent one to you. Well, thanks for that. Anyway, you're healed now, so the victim is over there. She's only just regained consciousness. We actually get to talk to her. You should introduce yourselves. And I shall observe from here. So that's the lady who was found on the snow-covered pavement with a knife in her back. Her name is... Oh yes, here we are. Miss Green. Alright, let's look at everything except for her. Look, there's a photograph in this frame here. Oh yes, it's a picture of a young gentleman. Looks to be about the same age as Miss Green, I would say. Perhaps the young woman's special someone, do you think? Oh wait, that's Ryunosuke. My, Mr. Naruhodo. I didn't know you had a sense for matters of the heart. Not in the least. I sincerely said the first thing I thought of. She's an artist, huh? This red wooden figure isn't the most charming, is it? I don't think that's a decoration, Mr. Naruhodo. It's an artist's mannequin, I believe, used when practicing sketching the human form in different poses. Really? It's not exactly what you'd call a typical figure for that purpose, though, is it? No, I suppose not. I confess I've never seen one quite so full-figured before. Well, if you want to draw a full-figured person, it's the right tool for the job. Ah, this looks like the patient's treatment notes. Let's see. Do not feed. What is this place, a zoo? You know, I seem to remember seeing an almost identical sign in our local park. For the pigeons, yes, this is a person. Poor woman, I hope she hasn't read this. That kind of sucks, low-key. There are a lot of bottles in that cabinet, aren't there? Do you think it's safe to keep them like that? If you were a patient here, I feel sure you'd take some medicine by mistake when you were half asleep. That is a worry, but at least the cabinet has a lock, even if it's only a flimsy-looking one. Oh, I've no doubt you'd managed to unlock that somehow while you were half asleep as well. There are limits even to what I can do when I'm half asleep, you know, Mr. Sato. Okay, there's a rat, there's a bag. That must be a bag of Miss Green's personal belongings. She would have to have been brought directly here after she was found stabbed on the pavement, though. I expect a friend or family member probably brought some things for her. Alright, then, let's see what's inside. A change of clothes, no doubt, and... No, Mr. Naruhodo, you must never scrutinize a young maiden's personal belongings. But the young maiden might have chocolates, or biscuits, or caramel. Silly. A mouse, Mr. Naruhodo! An enormous mouse! Vermin in a hospital. That doesn't seem the best. But it looks like a very healthy specimen, doesn't it? It's very plump. I'm not sure we can say that's down to the excellence of the facility, if that's what you were thinking. Okay, there's another bed over here. There are all sorts of medicines in this cabinet. Look, I'm not sure if it's safe within the reach of everyone like this. Yes, you're right. I can imagine if you were peckish, you might try a whole bottle or two. Well, there at least seems to be a little lock to secure the cabinet doors. I don't imagine that would stop you if you were hungry. I'd worry that you'd break the lock. Hunger doesn't turn me into a criminal, you know, Mr. Sato. Silly. This looks like the treatment notes for whoever's occupying this bed. Let's see. Do not permit to run around the hospital. The patient doesn't seem to be here at the moment, so... He or she is probably running around the hospital, then. Oh dear, how worrying. What's worrying is why they haven't discharged the patient yet. Alright. Now let's actually talk to Miss Green. Good morning. Hello. I'm Urinosuke Naruhodo, from the Empire of Japan. Oh no! Was it your knife? Are you the man who... No. I'm a lawyer. And I'm Susato Mikotoba. Pleased to meet you. Oh no! Was it your knife then? Are you the one? No. I assure you. I'm Mr. Naruhodo's judicial assistant. We heard that you'd regained consciousness and wanted to come give you our best wishes. Best wishes? For me? Thank you. I'm Olive Green. I'm an artist. Well, no, that's not right, is it? What I mean is, I'm trying to be an artist. Well, what I really mean is, I desperately want to be an artist. But the truth is, I don't have any talent. I know I don't. It's no wonder I was stabbed in the back. I don't think that's related, actually. Gosh, this young woman seems bent over backwards to put herself down. Seeing as we're here, we should ask her about what happened from her perspective, I suppose. To suddenly be struck in the back by a blade while you were walking along the pavement. What a terrible experience you had, Miss Green. It was so cold that day, and the fog was so thick I couldn't see a thing. That was 4 days ago now, I think. Is that right? Yes, that's right. I'm afraid you've been comatose all that time. But the case has been solved, hasn't it? While I've been here in hospital, I mean. Indeed it has, my dear madam. Spectacularly, by none other than I, Sherlock Sholmes. Mr. Sholmes, as you well know, it was Mr. Naruhodo's hard work in court that solved the case. Are you yet to hear what happened, Miss Green? Yes, I'm afraid so. A gentleman from the police force is supposed to be coming to fill me in shortly. Oh, I see. Me coming around seems to have made everyone frantically busy. I'm so sorry. I never should have regained consciousness. It was selfish of me. Oh no. We're all so relieved that you're on the mend, Miss Green. Really, we are. With that kind of attitude, maybe her surname should be Blue, not Green. So, you're an artist, are you, Miss Green? Oh, no. No, I couldn't possibly claim that. I'm a fledgling artist at best. I mean, I'm a student of art, really, at the Thorndike Academy of Fine Arts. Oh, my. An Academy of Fine Arts. Great Britain is such a wonderful country. Tell me, Miss Green, do you live hereabouts? Oh, no, actually. I don't deserve it, but I have a little flat on Brixton Road. I see. Oh, very interesting. Oh, no, is it? Brixton is some 10 stops away on the underground from here. And Thorndyke Academy is a mere 3-minute walk from Brixton Town Centre. Does that matter, Mr. Sholmes? Perhaps not. But Briar Road is a far less salubrious part of town by comparison, dwelt in by those of inferior means, including the maleficent Mr. Mustache. Inferior means? Well, I suppose Soseki-san does fit the bill. It struck me as somewhat out of the ordinary for a young fine arts student to be walking in such a district. That's all. What's this? She suddenly climbed up. Mr. Sholmes, you should be ashamed of yourself, prying into a young maiden's private affairs. Oh, dear me. Do forgive me. If you don't mind. I'm being discharged shortly, so I need to pack up my things. Oh, yes, of course. We won't keep you. Thank you so much, Miss Green. Is there a Mr. Narufada here? Mr. Narufada? Narrow fodder now? Well, if you're looking for Naruhodo, the lawyer, that's me, but... Ah, Mr. Narufada, good. This is for you. It's a message from, Mr. Saucy Nutmeg. Mr. Nutmeg sent a message to me. But why would a policeman be delivering a message from Mr. Natsume? Exactly. What's going on? What's a Scotland Yard constable doing playing delivery boy at this time in the morning? Ah, what are you waiting for? Let me see that. Oh. Well, this is most unexpected. Is something wrong, Mr. Sholmes? Is something wrong, Mr. Sholmes, he says. Have you not seen this note? No, how could I have? It would seem that London's criminals have no intention of letting the great detective rest. A new case calls. A case of murder, no less. We must depart at once. Murder? Call a cab. Time is of the essence. But the trouble is, we've yet to read Mr. Natsume's note. I was thinking we ought to pay him a visit in his lodging since we did. That will be entirely convenient. Convenient? What do you mean? It's all here in the note, my dear fellows. The murder we must investigate took place at Mr. Mustache's lodgings. Wait, what? I'll head a fiacre at once. It was only yesterday that Soseki-san was in court and we were dispelling doubts about his innocence. And now the very next day, there's a murder at the man's own address? He may very well be the unluckiest man alive. Or so it seemed to us at the time. But we were soon to discover it was worse than we thought. 21st February, 7:18 a.m. Mr. Natsume's lodgings. Ground floor. What on earth? Oh my. The gentleman is deceased without question. He's dead. Locum student, Mr. Naruhodo, Esquire. Mr. Natsume. Oh, why? Why is this happening? Why should me? I've only just got out of court yesterday. I was finally home after 2 days of misery. And then I wake up the next day to this. Now where are they put to catch the worm like this? Woeful worm without a wiggle. I see you're in high spirits again this morning, Mr. Mustache. Ah! Not the horrible Hairlock Sholmes. Shoo! Shove off! Show yourself the door! I never invited you! Mr. Sholmes came here with us. I'm quite sure he'll be able to help you, Mr. Natsume. I'm entirely at your disposal, Mr. Mustache. What can I do for you? Yeah. Here they are, already. The busybodies. Ah, Inspector Gregson! What a pleasant surprise. Pleasant, is it? Gives me heartburn every time I see your face at a crime scene, Sholmes. Ha! I deduce, Inspector, that your heartburn is a result of your excessive consumption of fried food. Good morning, Inspector. This is a crime scene. Don't you go touching anything. Or good morning to you too, Sunshine. Alright, well, here we go. So I can just barely go back and forth here. What's this? It looks like a set. Oi! I said hands off! You're gonna mess up my crime scene! Oh, no, I just wanted to look, that's all. No chance! I know your kind. You'll mess it up just by looking at it. Someone's in a bad mood. There's certainly some bad air in here, isn't there? Alright, seems like I better talk to the inspector first and try to curry some favor. Yeah, good idea. Let's do it. So, Inspector, what was the victim's name? Who was he? Mr. William Shamspear. He was a lodger here. As you can probably tell, he was an actor. A bit of a dead loss, as it happens. Or just dead. Mr. Shamspear. It was the landlord, old Mr. Garadeb, and the other lodger, Mr. Natsume, who found him. The fellow didn't rise at his usual hour, so Garadeb got worried and kicked the door down. But, doesn't Mr. Garadeb have a bad leg? Ah, yeah, you're right there. It was that jittery Japanese hunchback over there who actually did the kicking. Really? Soseki-san? The victim was pretty hard up, it seems. He had done some time inside for petty crimes. He had no money, no place to go, no friends. His only acquaintances were the people in this house. Man, I could really murder some fish and chips right now. Miserable life, and a miserable end to it. So, what exactly is Mr. Natsume still doing here? He's not involved in the investigation, so shouldn't you have sent him away from the crime scene? Well, I'm not saying it's because the fellow looks odd or anything, or that he acts suspicious. But I thought it might be prudent to take a statement from the culprit, cohabiter. You nearly said culprit there, didn't you? Oh dear. Mr. Natsume seems to be under suspicion again. Certainly seems that way. He does just come across as such an odd fellow, doesn't he? Poor man. How unfortunate. Anyway, I can't say much until the coroner gets here. But I don't think the fellow's been a goner that long. The body's still warm. Even if the inspector would allow it, I don't think I could bring myself to touch a dead body. Okay, can I look at stuff now? No. I think the only thing I can select now is Mr. Natsume, huh? What a terrible thing to have happened. It's only been 3 days since I was arrested for the incident on the pavement outside. And then, having finally regained my freedom, it starts happening all over again. Endless existence of excruciating experiences. So the victim lived here on the ground floor, and your room is just 1 story up, isn't it? Yes, that's right. In a way, we were neighbors, I suppose. So did you know the victim? Were you friends? What's the matter with Soseki-san now? It was an innocent enough question, wasn't it? Why does he seem so shaken by it? Well, I suppose he was a complete stranger. But did he ever invite me to his room? Never! On my honor, I swear it! What an extreme reaction. You're probably wishing you'd never asked now, aren't you, Mr. Naruhodo? When we found him here, I felt wretched, which is why I said word asking you to come. Through that inspector over there! What are you doing, Sholmes? Mr. Sholmes, what are you doing? Ha! You need only observe to know it, my dear fellow. Investigating, naturally. There's nothing natural about that pose. Mr. Sholmes, have you made some miraculous discovery? Patience, my dear madam, patience. We've not been in this room 5 minutes. So far, all I've managed to deduce is what actually happened. My goodness! But isn't that everything we need to know, Mr. Sholmes? Now that you propose the idea, I believe one could indeed see it that way. At the present time, I have managed to draw two incontrovertible conclusions. The first, that there was a physical struggle here last night, in which the victim fought for his life. Ah! Ah! Mr. Natsume, what's wrong? Is something that Mr. Sholmes said significant somehow? No, don't mind me. Forget I was here. Alright. And my second conclusion is that there was a poison lingering in the air here last night that passed the victim's lips. Nonsense! Ah. Alright, Mr. Natsume, why are you reacting so extremely to Mr. Sholmes' deductions? No, please, pretend I'm not here. Invisible, ineffable, inscrutable, insignificant. Impossible to ignore. You must tell us everything, Mr. Sholmes. Spare no detail. But of course, let the theatrical tragedy before us be unraveled by my great deductions, presented for your pleasure in 2 acts. We've heard some truly astounding great deductions from Mr. Sholmes in the past. No doubt this will be no exception. What miracles will unfold before our eyes this time? So, my dear fellows, for your delight and wonder, let the curtain rise for Herlock Sholmes' Logic and Reasoning Spectacular, Act 1. Let's do this. Topic 1. Cause of death. I love Ghost Trick. Yay! Ghost Trick spotlights. Careful observation of the victim reveals to us the events that transpired in this disconsolate room last night. Foam at the mouth of the deceased clearly indicates the use of poison. Next to the victim, we notice a large dining plate on which we observe 1/2 of a sizable bar of soap. Meaningful. Indubitably. Why is the soap set so purposefully upon the dish? Like the victim's Last Supper, in fact. Yes. Could it be the man was about to eat it? Of course, the fork reveals the answer. It appears that the young man's appetite was his undoing. Taking up arms in the form of his cutlery, the victim engaged in a deadly battle for his life. Yet the struggle against his hunger was in vain, for in the end he couldn't risk devouring the slippery feast. But London's foul soap is besmirched by foul poison. Yes, the victim's life was claimed by poison that tainted the contents of the plate. The soap and the lather about the young man's mouth are too perfectly matched to ignore. Or it could be in the teacup. The cause of death was clearly intoxication due to excessive ingestion of foul soap. Though personally, I have greater interest in the taste of foul candle wax, of course. What? Okay, poisoning from soap ingestion. Cool. Topic 2. Suicide or murder? The cause of death identified, we proceed to Act 2, where we ponder the next question. Was this suicide or murder? The audience will recall that the death occurred during the victim's Last Supper. Did the man dine and die alone? This single teacup suggests the answer. To draw a conclusion on such meager evidence would be foolish, however, certainly. The careful criminal could have absconded with his own cup to cover his tracks. Well, allow me to lift the veil of doubt, my dear fellow. Indeed, what reveals the answer, of course, is the broken lock. Though forced open now, at the time of the incident, this door was locked. And the sole key was in the victim's pocket. In other words, when the victim consumed the poison, he must have been alone. Alone with his inferior soap, from whence wafted an inferior scent. And with that acrid aroma lingering in the air, the victim met his end in tragic solitude. We can take comfort only in the fact that his soul was well cleansed on his way to the hereafter. No possible perpetrator present. Thus concludes the final act of Herlock Sholmes' Great Deduction. Not the most solid of conclusions, I gotta say. Thanks, Wendy. That makes sense. There's just one thing, Mr. Sholmes. You're disposed to identifying just one thing, aren't you, Mr. Naruhodo? Pray, what concerns you? Well, no matter how hungry he was, do you really think the man would have eaten soap? It is quite apparent that this man had barely a penny to his name. It is a curious thing, but to one so destitute, soap can suddenly appear quite irresistibly appetizing. How extraordinary. In truth, I have tried a little soap myself in the past. You've eaten it, you mean? My dear fellow, it was some time ago now. My postulation was that it would cleanse my gut. And did it? As I writhed in agony on the floor and spilt the contents of my stomach, yes, I believe it did. The experience taught me a valuable lesson. Soap is quite poisonous. Incredible. It has an unpleasant taste and leads to great discomfort. In summary, I could not recommend it. Believe me, I wouldn't eat it even if you did. There's something that troubles me as well, actually. Oh, what's that? It's Mr. Natsume. Ah! I couldn't help noticing him shuddering and quivering out of the corner of my eye. Almost as if Mr. Sholmes' deductions touched a nerve somehow. No, nonsense. Well, that clenched teeth episode didn't last. I think, judging by Mr. Natsume's reaction, the great detective's deductions might need some gentle corrections in order to reach the actual truth. Yes, Mr. Sholmes' observations and deductions are sometimes a little too sharp. He has the tendency to hit the nail on the side of the head and drive it in at an obtuse angle. That's a good metaphor. When he does that, it falls to us to straighten things out. Alright then, let's see what we can do. Yes, we must pick out the key words in Mr. Sholmes' quite brilliant deductions, and discreetly exchange them for something that makes a little more sense. If we can do that, I'm sure we'll arrive at what Mr. Sholmes meant to say in the first place. In that case, are you ready for the second performance of the day? Once again, my dear fellows, for your continued delight and wonder, let the curtain rise for Herlock Sholmes' Logic and Reasoning Spectacular, Act 1. Course correction. Woohoo! Alrighty. It's the ghost. I will never not be happy about the ghost trick spotlights in this game. Careful observation of the victim reveals to us the events that transpired in this disconsolate room last night. Foam at the mouth of the deceased clearly indicates the use of poison. That is correct. Next to the victim, we notice a large dining plate, which contains, as you will observe, 1/2 of a sizable bar of soap. Meaningful, indubitably. Why is the soap set so purposefully upon the dish? Like the victim's Last Supper, in fact. Yes. Could it be that the man was about to eat it? Of course, the fork reveals the answer. Yeah, no. Yeah, it's great. Dancing through it. Well, you can't deny that a fork implies the man was eating something, or about to eat something. Yes, that's true. If I were to decide to eat some soap, I would prefer to use a fork than to attempt it with chopsticks. And of course, only half of the bar of soap is left on the plate. But Might there not be some other explanation? Something material that proves whether or not the man really ate some soap? What could it be? We've got... I thought the stain was something. There's another piece of soap. Over here. There's the hat. That's literally just it, right? The teacup. Fork. Yeah, that's literally all I could do. So yeah, so here's the other piece of soap.
Take that!
Take that! Could it be that the man was about to eat it? Of course, the other piece of soap reveals the answer. It being the other half of the soap on the table. In short, the victim was not eating soap at all. But it's obvious, really. For no depths of hunger could drive any man to attempt to eat soap. Look on Ryu's face. Even I, with my unquenchable thirst for practical knowledge, took only a single bite. But that begs the question of how the man was poisoned, because there's no sign of any food on the table. An excellent observation, Mr. Naruhodo, and one that furnishes us with the answer we seek. For London's foul soap is besmirched by foul poison. Yes, the victim's life was claimed by poison that tainted the contents of the plate. No, the contents of the cup. Mr. Soames is still pushing the soap argument, then. Perhaps he's suggesting the man licked the soap rather than ate it? If soap in London is that poisonous, I don't want to be washing my hands with it. But there are no signs of any food in this room at all. Of course, food isn't the only thing that passes people's lips, is it? Yes, well, this is very obvious. The teacup.
Take that!
Yes, the victim's life was claimed by poison that tainted the teacup. Indeed, cups have been the vessel of choice for practicing poisoners over the centuries. And it would appear this victim drank every last drop. There's no sign of food anywhere in the room. Which leads us to the immutable conclusion. The cause of death was clearly intoxication due to the ingestion of poison contained in this teacup. Checks out. Alright. The cause of death identified, we proceed to Act 2, where we ponder the next question. Was this suicide or murder? The audience will recall that the death occurred during the victim's Last Supper. Did the man die alone? This single teacup suggests the answer. Ah, the Western vessel for infused hot drinks again. It's already featured heavily in our deduction so far. Yes, we can imagine that shortly before his death, Mr. Shamspeare was having a drink of tea. There'd be nothing remarkable about that. But what troubles me is Mr. Natsume's reaction when he heard Mr. Sholmes suggest it. There's more to this deduction than it seems. We must closely examine the scene of the crime again for some more clues. Let's see. Oh. Lamau. There's a second teacup. It's literally just that simple.
Take that!
Silly. I guess it's the new tutorial, right? Did the man dine and die alone? This other teacup suggests the answer. Yes, there were two teacups in this room all along. In other words, this is a strong indication that at the victim's Last Supper, there was a guest present. At the very least, we can say now with certainty that somebody else was here in this room last night, taking tea with the victim. What are you talking about? Utterly, unbelievably, unjustly unreasonable. To draw a conclusion on such meager evidence would be foolish, however, certainly. In which case, what more can we deduce about this possible guest at the table? Oh, that's Ryu. Well, allow me to lift the veil of doubt, my dear fellow. Do you mean to say you know who exactly was in this room at the time of the victim's death? Indeed, what reveals the answer, of course, is the broken lock. I'm not sure I like where this deduction is going now. I'm afraid it's too late to go back to the halcyon days of eating too much soap. But the identity of the guest who was in here is something I have a very bad feeling about. Yeah, we gotta look around again. And this is literally just gonna be... Oh, I see. There's some glasses, pile of books, empty bottle, candle. My guess is it's the pile of books, because this came from his, Suseki's room. No. Aw, man. Okay. That was not it. Alright. I will save, then. Okay. Okay. There's the empty bottle. I mean, the only things we can click on are the empty bottle, and the candle, and these books, right? It's not letting me look at anything else. So it's got to be one of the three. It reveals the answer. I mean, I guess we're just... Okay. I guess it's just... we have to have proof that there was another person in there, right? So... Take that! Empty bottle? Wow. Oh, is it that the candle is still burning? Alright. Take that! Wow, what am I missing? Wow. Alright, well, let's think about this differently. Okay. I mean, it could just be the fact... no, it couldn't be the broken lock. What gives away the identity of the victim? Well... maybe it's the broken lock? Like, still? Actually? Because... Natsume is the one who broke it down, so like he knows where the lock was? I don't know. There's glasses over here. There's literally nothing else. Oh, right, we have to examine stuff. Thank you. Thank you. First glance, it's the only thing. I overlooked these 3 books. I wonder what they are. The titles read: The Picture of Monsieur Lecoq, Canterbury Yearnings, and A Meal for Gabrielle. Wait, I'm sure I've heard those titles before. It could be an incredible coincidence, but they're the exact same 3 books that Mr. Natsume purchased the other day. On the unfortunate day of the fortunate infants were stabbed, Soseki-san had just been to a bookshop and bought them. And now they're in the room with the victim, yet he claims to have never been here before. That's a contradiction. What does this mean? I really don't know what to make of it. Pile of familiar books. Silly. Take that! I literally forgot you could do that. Because it's not actually on the HUD, I don't think. I don't think it gives you the option to, like, examine, like, among your options on the bottom. Yeah, I was on the right track. I was like, hey, books, but like we also haven't really established that in this game yet, in the second game, because I don't think we haven't been to his apartment in the second game. Indeed, what reveals the answer, of course, is the pile of familiar books. Quite so. It's no coincidence that these 3 titles are here in this room. It's the link to the truth. Ah! Mr. Natsume, you purchased these 3 books 4 days ago at a secondhand bookshop. That's just a coincidence! In that case, you'll be able to bring the same 3 titles from your own room, will you not? This very moment. No! Never! Non-negotiable! If you can't bring your own copies here, it proves that these 3 books are, in fact, yours. Lovely. Having purchased the books 4 days ago and returned to your lodgings, you were arrested the very next day. So you could conceivably have brought the books here on that evening, but you never mentioned that. In other words, you could have only brought these 3 books here to the victim's room. Last night, having returned to your lodgings after the trial concluded at the Old Bailey. I like that little... That's cute. In short, there is only one possible conclusion. The victim died here in this room last night as a result of a poisoning. And that same night, the victim had a visitor. And that visitor... Wee. Was you, Mr. Soseki Natsume. Thus concludes the final act of Herlock Sholmes' great deduction. Well, he's in trouble. Yeah. So... Do I get some of my, Do I get some of my stuff back, or am I still at 1? I still got my 1 health thing taken away. Not again! Not again! Not again! Not again! Well then, Mr. Natsume. It would appear you're gonna have to accompany me down to the yard. Again. But wait! Hold your horses! Yes? Door! Key! Locked! Entry! Exit! Entirely impossible! He's so flustered he's being even stranger than normal. What? You think that's an alibi? You could have just made a copy. What? You live in the same building after all. You have plenty of opportunity, I'm sure. Misery me! Sorry, sir. You'll get your chance to give your side of the story later. The facts speak for themselves, Mr. Mustache. You horrible Herlock Sholmes! He really has found himself an arch rival now, hasn't he? Come on now, no dilly-dallying. Outside, there's a carriage waiting. Locum student, Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. I never imagined I'd be in this position again, but... You have to help me! Please, please! I'm innocent! Alright, I understand. We'll come to your cell later and talk about it. And one more thing. Oh, yes? My poor little kitty cat. Please give him his breakfast for me! Well, here we go again. And so, his evil curse still apparently unbroken, Soseki-san found himself once again the prime suspect in a case of murder. Thanks to the incriminating deduction of the great detective. My dear fellow, that honor belongs to you. Well, at least that means Inspector Gregson is no longer here. We can examine the crime scene in more detail now. Yes, that's right. And of course... What? Have you forgotten what the inspector mentioned before? It was the landlord, Mr. Garadeb, who discovered Mr. Shamspeare. Mr. John Garadeb, yes. I expect we could find him in his sitting room at the top of floor, as usual. Right, we must remember to go and talk to him later, then. Alright, so we got some stuff to do. Let's take a look at the candle on the set here. This is some sort of makeshift stage, I think, isn't it? Where does the audience sit, though, for the nightly Shakespeare performances? Actors aspiring to the great stage must practice their art, Mr. Naruhodo, with or without an audience. In fact, on a related note, perhaps you should set up a mock bench for the defense in your office. What? Yeah, exactly. We don't have Maya, so someone else has to take on the unlucky role of being accused of murder all the time. Then you can practice your art every single day. I'll think about it, if you promise to don a beard and play the role of the judge. Well, if that would help you achieve your goal. This I have to see. This is a gas wall light, isn't it? It must be connected to a gas pipe in the wall. Gas lights, a gas stove. London really is a city of gas. And now that I think about it, Mr. and Mrs. Garrett had an open fire on the top floor, didn't they? Oh yes, you're right. I don't recall seeing a gas stove up there. Well, I much prefer a real fire anyway. It's so much cozier. Alright. There's a little kettle back here. Or no, maybe that's just the body. As we've seen from the outside, the window is completely bricked up. Oh yeah, the window tax. A vestige of the former window tax that Britons had to pay. What strange things they used to tax in Great Britain. I mean, making people pay for the number of windows they had in a property? It's extraordinary. I'm literally reading Thomas More's Utopia right now. And there's a bunch, I mean, the whole opening section is they're parodying, like, all of the stupid economic decisions that nobles make in order to tax the people. It's heartbreaking to think of the poor having to block up their windows just to avoid an unaffordable tax. Oh. What is it, Mr. Sato? If you look closely... I missed that. What did she say? Oh. If you look closely, a number of the bricks are loose. Oh yes, it looks as though an amateur has just broken out a few of them here. Was it Mr. Shamspeare who did it, I wonder? Being the lodger renting this room? Well, we have an escape route. And it's on the first floor, right? Oh, look at this. Mr. Naruhodo. On the outside, there's a little ledge. And there's something on it. What, outside? They're like bars of soap, right? Can I take a look? It's so cold outside. You can feel it through this gap. It did snow all last night. It would be cold. More importantly, what is it on this ledge out there? Are those snow-covered lumps? It's more bars of soap. Soap? What are bars of soap doing lined up on a ledge outside the window? I have no idea. But the pair of them look rather charming like that. Still, it's very strange, isn't it? Bars of soap lined up outside the window? I think perhaps we should take one. There are two, after all. Oh dear. I suppose we could. Oh, what's this? Look here at the soap. Do you see in the middle there? There's a patch that's a different color. It's sort of transparent, but... some sort of fancy design, I suppose? Only in Great Britain. It looks like the Hinamaru flag of Japan, doesn't it? How wonderful. It's probably a very expensive brand. Expensive? What's it doing in this ramshackle little room? Alright. I guess let's take a look at the... let's take a look at the evidence we've got. Secondhand book receipts. The sum of 2 shillings. Oh yeah. There's given us evidence in the trial the other day. I forgot about that. Okay, this is once again the same. This is the same thing. So this is the lodgings. That's where she was found, and that's the bookshop. I remember that well. The bar of soap. Part is a different color. Trust the British are boring bar of soap in something special. Yep. Very cool. I guess they're all like that. Oh. I think I just, yeah. Okay, we're back. I think my internet just went out for a sec, but I'm back. Double check. Everything is fine. Okay, maybe it was just the YouTube end. Okay. This one looks like a king's attire. King? Always dreamt of being a king. Oh, I think you'd be much more suited to a feudal lord, a daimyo or such like. With a chonmage top knot. Every Japanese man wishes he had a chonmage. Oh, you'd look wonderful with one. And you already have the sword. Can you imagine what would happen if I walked around the streets of London with a chonmage and a sword? It's like when people talk about, it's like samurais had like machine guns. Like the timelines like match up. Nope. There's not much on these shelves, is there? Just this wine glass and bottle. And both of them are cracked. Yeah, it's not much use, are they? What's the matter? Oh, I was just reminded of the Reaper, that's all. Oh, Prosecutor Lord Van Zeeks. Yes, he's so reckless with his wine glasses. I was thinking it's a waste and that he should donate some to the needy. You can suggest it next time we meet. Something on the ground here. What's this? Looks like a part of an envelope, I think. Yes, I think you may be right. Perhaps it was torn off and the letter was opened. Is that significant? It's a little out of place, perhaps. When you look around the room, there's no sign of a letter, or the rest of the envelope, in fact, is there? She's right. And yet here we have the torn off end of an envelope. It just strikes me as unusual. I agree. We better take this just in case. Alright. Ripped piece of an envelope. The rest cannot be found. Okay. I haven't looked at the body yet. I think this thing is the last thing before looking at the body. And here we have another disproportionately large machine. This one looks like a meter of some kind. Ah, this is a gas meter, I think. It seems that in this district, residents pay for gas as they use it with coins. I see. Yes, now that you've pointed it out, I can see that there's a slot just here. It looks like it would take a coin. So you mean if you put a coin in here... That's right, that would buy you about 2 hours of gas for lights and heating. So if you were a poor person with no money, you'd have to sleep in the freezing cold? Yes, or if you were a scatterbrain with no change because you forgot to exchange your money at the bank. Thank goodness there's no meter in our office. Oh, the poor man. So young to die. Do you suppose it was a very painful death, being poisoned as he was? I don't know. All we can do now is hope he'll be reborn to a better life. Yes, I suppose you're right. I wonder. Do you think that putting our hands together in a Japanese prayer will help a British soul? Sorry? I made sure I'd reference at the ready for just an occasion such as this, actually. This book is entitled The Beginner's Guide to Praying for the Departed, the British Way. What is this, the Book of Common Prayer? I'll just reread it now. One moment. There's quite a spine on that book, isn't there? Oh, it's literally it. Oh. You're not going to talk about the long history of Anglican Common Prayer, huh? Guess that's just me. That's just a me thing. Oh, one of the teacups that Mr. Shamspeare and his guests drank from last night. But don't go drinking from them, Mr. Naruhodo. There's bitter poison inside. I'm not planning on drinking any, don't worry. Anyway, the cups are both empty. That's true. So, one was Mr. Shamspeare's, and the other must be the cup that Mr. Natsume was drinking from. But Soseki-san wasn't poisoned, of course. Perhaps we should take these so we can examine them in more detail later. Alright. That should be it for investigating, right? In this room. We still have to go up and talk to Garradeb. Looks like you're having a good snoop around, eh? Inspector Gregson, back so soon? Alright. Let's take a look at these. This envelope didn't bother with a letter opener or scissors. As whoever opened it was clearly someone with an unrefined temperament. Judging from the angle of the rip here, the person must have been right-handed. So I think perhaps he was reading too much of the Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. Could read too much of it. Seth was not doing adultery that long. Ryunosuke wouldn't listen. That's true. Alright. Oh, so this is interesting. The one with the green line around the rim was Mr. Natsume's. How do we know this? They're both a little bit cracked, aren't they? This must be the cup that Mr. Shamsi was drinking from. Stained on the inside. Tea does that, I'm afraid. Even green tea. Oh, really? I never noticed before. You never noticed? I never leave it in the cup long enough to leave a mark. I like to gulp it down. Drink tea while it's hot. That's the Japanese way, isn't it? Oh dear, so many people seem to have the wrong idea about our culture. And most of them are Japanese. Alright, and then this is... this is the teacup from Mr. Natsume was drinking. It's like the other one. This one's completely clean. Just must have drunk the contents before the tea had the chance to leave a mark. I always gulp it down, too. Sorry, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, if you sip it little by little, it goes cold. Clearly, I have to instruct you in the proper way to take tea. There's no tea ring from the inside of Mr. Natsume's cup. So, it can very clearly mean that there was no tea in there. That'll be important for later, I'm sure. After I threw that little Japanese fellow in the clink, I went and reported this to the investigation division. In 5 minutes' time, this place will be cordoned off by the yard. I see. We better be leaving then. Poor Mr. Natsume must be feeling very low being back in his cell again so soon. I'm sure we should probably go and... Ha ha! Lamau. So silly. Well, it's another not actual death, it looks like. What's wrong, Mr. Naruhodo? I was about to say, I'm pretty sure I've seen this guy move, like, online. Out! Out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow. A poor player that struts and frets his way across the stage. His hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. He probably doesn't remember the rest of it. Now, how soundeth the next part? It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. See, he knows it! Indeed! Oh, happy day! Oh my god, what the heck? I don't think your legs should be able to bend like that. Walking Dead? Well, I did actually play that role in high school. That struts and frets his hour upon the stage and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. I was always fond of the one that went, if it twere done when 'tis done, 'twere well it were done quickly. If the assassination could trammel up the consequence and catch with his Cersei's success, that but this blow might be the be-all and the end-all here. But here, upon this bank and shoal in time, we'll jump to life to come. Yes, I also took, like... Yeah. From the front, it looked really messed up, but I could see it, yeah, when it zoomed in. I took, like, 5 courses in college on Shakespeare, now that I think about it. The fella isn't dead at all! What was that nonsense he was saying, though? I think... Yes, it was from William Shakespeare's Macbeth. A soliloquy from Act 5, Scene 5. Was it Scene 5? I guess it was. Shakespeare. So it was that the victim, Mr. William Shamspeare, came back to life. If the man had indeed been poisoned, it transpired that it hadn't killed him. He was taken by emergency carriage to a nearby hospital for treatment. And Inspector Gregson evicted us from the scene of the crime, whatever that now was. attempted murder. 21st February, Briar Road. Whatever do you think will happen now? Good question. What a strange situation for Mr. Natsume. Arrested for murder, but then the victim comes back to life. I think perhaps the victim was never dead in the first place. It seems very likely that Mr. Shamspeare did consume poison, as we deduced. But was it an accident, attempted suicide, or attempted murder? Until the truth can be established, I believe the police will keep Mr. Natsume in custody. Suppose so. Let's hope it doesn't come to anything more than a night in the cells. Oh, what's this? It's a guy. He's painted into the background. What's that man doing over there? It looks like he's trying to see into Mr. Soseki's lodgings. Is something wrong, Mr. Naruhodo? Excuse me. Can we have a word? Ugh! Let's see. He just ran off. I feel sure I've seen that man somewhere before. Where was it? I do too, but I don't remember. Garrideb household and Mr. Natsume's lodgings are in a prominent position here on the corner. Sometimes within the building, I can't help feeling it's at a bit of a slant. It does rather look like it would collapse even in the smallest earthquake, doesn't it? But isn't it supposed to be haunted as well? I think I might have a hunch as to why Soseki-san has such a hunched back. There always seems to be a bicycle outside the Garrideb residence. I read that bicycles are extremely popular all over Great Britain at the moment, in fact. That one seems very warped, though, especially the front wheel. Does that make it more of a challenge to ride, do you think? No, I'm afraid that might be a result of the rider's incompetence. For the front wheel to be so badly warped, I'm afraid the rider might have been similarly afflicted. Yeah. And there's a good chance Mr. Natsume has been practiced on this bicycle, I think. Oh dear, I fear you may be right. They live, like, up here, right? Because it was, like, this window that the knife came. Bloop. With the exception of the top floor, where Mr. and Mrs. Garrideb live, all the windows are bricked up. It's because of the old window tax, yep. In order to pay less tax, the poor members filled in their windows. The tax has been abolished, hasn't it? So the windows could be opened up again, surely. Unfortunately, it would appear the residents of this district can't afford to pay to have the work done. Yes, that is a sad state of affairs. Especially for people like poor Mr. Natsume, who have to live all cooped up in a windowless room. Well, this is the price you pay for living in a very cheap accommodation. It all seems rather pointless when you put it like that. St. Paul's. London's blanketed in fog again today, and the sky is covered in cloud. But if you look carefully in the distance, you can just make out the Crystal Tower being built. Ah, the Crystal Tower, yes. The centerpiece of the great exhibition that's to open in 6 months' time. Oh yeah, that's going to be part of the storyline. Everyone's talking about the Great Exhibition of London at the moment, it seems. Well, this would be the largest event of its kind anywhere in the world, with technology and scientists from all over. I can't wait for it myself. Do you think visiting students from the Far East like us will be granted entry? The last great exhibition that was held in London had more than 6 million visitors, it seems. And this time the British are determined to make it an even bigger success, to outdo the Paris Exposition. I see. That's an incredible number of people. And with so many people expected to attend, we should easily be able to slip in unnoticed. There's always the honest approach of buying tickets at the main entrance, Mr. Naruhodo. Okay. Yep. News, snowman. Nothing else. Just tree, lights. It's literally just the snowman left, huh? And then let's go up to Garrideb's place. Why someone built a snowman on top on some sort of pedestal, do you think? That's not a pedestal, Mr. Naruhodo. That's part of the snowman's body. Really? It already has a perfectly good body. Well, it's true that the British snowmen are usually made with 2 balls of snow. perhaps this is a foreigner. But now we're looking at him as if he's strange. Poor man, I know how he feels. If anything, it's Japanese and British two-ball snowmen that are the strange ones, isn't it? After all, real people have 3 sections, head, torso, and legs. Do you ever think that perhaps you think about things too much? Interesting, I didn't know that about different kinds of snowmen. Alright, let's go up. Yeah, I can't go in there. Alright. To the Gyarados. Here we are again. The eccentric landlord's eccentric top floor abode. We're here because Mr. Gyarados the one who discovered the incident this morning. Don't forget. Ah, you chaps, eh? Yes, good morning, sir. Thank you for your cooperation in court yesterday. It was quite a trial. As much for Mr. Gyarados as anyone, really. Came straight back here after all that business at the Bailey yesterday. Didn't expect to wake up to more bally nonsense this morning. I wonder if you wouldn't mind telling us exactly what happened, Mr. Gyarados. Yes, I suppose you'd like to know all about that dead loss of an actor chap in the ground floor room. Those were exactly Mr. Gregson's words, weren't they? Ugh. Let's take a look at his room again, shall we? Good to see Mr. Gyarados' Medal of Honor still proudly displayed on the wall. The inscription reads, "For distinguished participation," if you remember. Yes, I remember. Because I remember thinking even I might stand a chance of picking up honors like that. You wouldn't know to look at me now, perhaps, but I had my devil-may-care days, you know? Devil-may-care? What'd you get up to? Well, that's all in the past now, of course, and best left there. Best not. I want to know now. I want to know now. Okay. Ah, yes, those enormous mortar shells. It's quite something seeing them up close, isn't it? Didn't you say something about firing them into the barracks, Mr. Gyarados? Ah, you remember, do you? Just a little mishap that occurred during training one day. What are you doing firing on your own men? The captain bellowed at me. I'm not surprised. A little mishap doesn't really do it justice, does it? Well, one has these little incidents, and one's a hot-headed young private. Perhaps I should put some evidence that resulted from one of my mishaps on display. Oh, does the great lawyer, like the great detective, want to exhibit some trophies of his finest moments? Yeah, why not? You look very dashing in your uniform there, Mr. Gyarados. Ah, that old portrait, eh? Drawn by an art student who used to rent the room downstairs. Oh, you look wonderfully young and courageous and strong. Yes, well, the chap presented it to me one day and asked if I'd let him off the month's rent in return. Oh, I see. So, you did, presumably? I very well did not. Oh. A portrait is a portrait, but rent is rent, eh? And yet it's still there proudly on the wall. That sucks. We know what that screen is hiding now. The aftermath of the fiery altercation the other day. Don't suppose I'll be able to clear that mess up for some time now. Oh dear, this must be a very difficult situation for you. I'll say, people talk about twists of fate and whatnot. But this is a twist and a half. A rotten show all around. He's clearly struggling with everything that's happened. Alright. Books. Uniform. That's your military uniform, isn't it, Mr. Gyarados? Well, ceremonial garb, yes. Been hanging on the wall ever since my retirement bash. Not in active service now, you know. Doesn't mean much to me anymore. You could have the old thing if you wanted it. Well, it might suit Lord Van Zieks, perhaps. An overly ostentatious outfit like this could be just what he needs. Very tactful, Mr. Sato. Very tactful indeed. There's a single apron drawing on that enormous cannon-shaped clothes horse. Look. Oh no, Mr. Naruhodo, that's a real cannon. I knew that. I was just testing you. Piece of history that has seen plenty of action on the battlefield, I can tell you. Now the old girl and I are just enjoying the peace and quiet of retirement together. And of course, she'd come in handy if the enemy decided to launch an attack again. Is there a war going on that I don't know about? Oh, a copy of Rance magazine. The Adventures of Herlock Sholmes is being read all over London. Isn't it wonderful? Naturally, one asks oneself if such a singular detective could really exist. But having met the chap, it's undeniable. He is most certainly singular. Singularly dangerous. That's genuine public opinion for you, Mr. Sato. Perhaps it should be reflected in the stories. Make no mistake, Mr. Naruhodo. I intend to snuff out the sort of public opinion we've just heard personally. I'm starting to see where Mr. Sholmes' untainted reputation comes from now. These shelves look like they've been completely torn apart by a wild beast. Reminds me of the Battle of Maiwan, wouldn't you know? The experiences of a seasoned veteran. Enemy had us surrounded on all sides. We really thought we were done for, the whole Bally Company. They were taking a real pounding from their cannon, so all we could do was run for our lives. Oh, I thought that story was going in a different direction, actually. Well, the whole experience taught me one thing, I can tell you. When you're done for, you're really done for. That's not what a lawyer who often finds himself under fire wants to hear. That's an impressive collection of cakes on the fancy silver cake stand there. I feel sure that it was full of cakes when we first investigated in here as well. Yeah, that's quite right. Haven't touched it since. Haven't done much at all, really, since it happened. Time's rather stood still for me, you know. Oh. Time has stood still. Now that's an interesting phrase. I might be able to use that excuse when I'm next supposed to be tidying the office. You could just tidy up, Mr. Naruhodo. The way that Naruhodo and Susato are written just feels very much, especially Naruhodo, feels very much like Trilogy Phoenix, for sure. And that's the Takumi influence. Look at my attorney's badge. Mr. Gerdeb, can I show you this? It's been quite a couple of days, as you can imagine. I'm feeling rather tired. Yeah, okay. Okay, nope. Nope. Maybe I'll show him the soap. Maybe that would make a difference. Nope. One left. Yay! Complete waste of time. Alright. Let's talk to him. Or converse. Silly. It must have been a real shock for you this morning. I hear you discovered what had happened. Ah, well, that homeless actor chap rises at 5 o'clock sharp every morning without fail. But at 5:30 this morning, he still hadn't lit the gas. So I went down and knocked on his door, but no bally answer. And that's when you broke into his room by kicking down the door. Well, I called on that rum-looking Japanese chap to do the grunt work, of course. Wasn't it a little premature to kick the door down? The man could have just overslept by half an hour. That's very true, Mr. Naruhodo. If 30 minutes oversleeping warranted such behavior, I'd have to kick your door down every morning. Well, you know, better to be safe than sorry and all that. Is it just me, or is he avoiding our gaze now all of a sudden? Except it was a sorry situation indeed that you found on the far side of the door. The victim's name is Mr. Shamspear, I believe. Is that right? Yes, William Shamspear. Took the ground floor room 3 months ago now. And how would you describe him? In a word, destitute. Destitute? Well, let's face it, the only redeeming feature of that room is the cheap rent. Anyone wanting to live in a place like that is either broke or has a bally screw loose. So hard to choose which category Soseki-san would fall into. Mr. Naruhodo, that's a little rude. He was doing research as well. Research into what? Shakespeare, of course, Shakespeare. Read a few plays of the old bard myself, you know. Romeo and Hamlet and all that. Yes, William Shakespeare is England's most highly regarded classical playwright and author. He's known as Sao in Japanese, as you know, and many of his works have already been translated. Seems incredible that Shakespeare was shortened to Sao, though. Someone was too heavy-handed there. There are a lot of costumes in the victim's room, actually, weren't there? Of course, Mr. Natsume is a scholar of English literature as well. I think, isn't... There was a, It was the Kurosawa film Ran, I believe, is a adaptation of Macbeth. One of his films is a adaptation of Shakespeare. I imagine he and Mr. Shamspeare would have much in common. Shakespeare interpretation disagreement leads to shocking murder. Let's hope it's not that. Mr. Naruhodo, really, how rude. After Mr. Natsume's trial yesterday, you came straight back here, I believe, didn't you? Did you notice anything strange between then and this morning? Well, no, it must have been about 6 in the evening by the time I got home. Snow was coming down rather heavily, as I remember, and it was completely dark already. That failed actor chap was out at the time. Mr. Gerdeb noticed there was no light from his room or something, I suppose. Couldn't summon the energy for anything much, so I just sat in front of the fire up here. It was after 8 before Shamspeare got back. And the chap was up until past 1 in the morning, I'll have you know. Suppose he met his men sometime after that. I was asleep by then, so I'm rather in the dark there. Well, thank you. That was very illuminating. Everything all right, Mr. Sato? Well, I was just thinking it's a little strange, that's all. Mr. Gerdeb, you were up here in your room all evening, if I've understood correctly. Not a big fan of stairs, not with this blasted leg. Then, how is it that you seem to know? The precise movements of your tenant on the ground floor, I mean. That's a very good point. I can't imagine that you could hear noises from the ground floor all the way up here. Does this old man like to spy on his tenants? Is that it? I say, I know what you're thinking, and it's a bally outrage. I'm ex-military, don't you know? I don't go around spying on my tenants. Why would I? Then how did you know, Mr. Gerdeb? It's the gas, woman. The gas tells me everything. The gas? Speaking gas? What on earth do you mean, sir? How can the gas tell you anything, let alone everything? Well, as you're probably aware, the gas is supplied to the building by pipes. Yes, I'd more or less worked that out. Every room in the building is connected by a single pipe to the gas main outside. And the gas company supplies gas to properties via the main. Yes, I understand that too. Let me see if I can explain. Let's say I was to light the gas lamps up here. What do you suppose would happen? Well, obviously the room would get brighter. Exactly. But at the same time, the lights in all the other rooms of the house would dim for a moment. What? They dim? Why? Perhaps it's because when you light a gas lamp, it briefly uses more gas than usual, and that reduces the amount of gas in the pipe for the other lamps that are connected to it. That would explain why the other lamps dim momentarily, mightn't it? Yes, of course, because everything's connected to a single supply pipe. Is that supposed to happen, though? It sounds rather undesirable. Jolly good point. Fact is, the gases company's pipes in these parts are pretty hopeless, long worn out. I barely got any gas in them to start with. Opposite's also true, of course. Extinguish the lamps up here, and they glow brighter in the rest of the house. Alright, I see. So by watching the flickering of the lamps in one room, you can determine what's happening elsewhere. You've got it. Get some water. Of course, because when people come back home in the evening, and before they go to sleep at night, what they're guaranteed to do is either light or put out their lamps and fires. Clever. In point of fact, the room on the ground floor and the one above it use slightly different amounts of gas. By watching the lights in here closely, I can work out almost exactly what's going on in the whole house. Gosh, that's fascinating, Mr. Garrett. Absolutely fascinating. Oh, well, nothing to it, really. I can't really see it's going to help us with the case, either. What I'd like to know is why Mr. Garrett is so interested in what his tenants are up to in the first place. I feel like there's more to it than idle curiosity. Well, I've done as much investigating here as we can, I think. Perhaps we have to go to the prison and speak to Mr. Natsume again. Good idea. Sounds good. Let's go. I'm gonna need some water for this dude. Cell 9, local prison. Look, Mr. Naruhodo. Mr. Natsume, have the police finished questioning you now? Locum student, Mr. Naruhodo, Esquire. Oh, yes? What is he? Tell me! Is he a ghost? Is he here to haunt me? Let me guess, you're talking about Mr. Sholmes. He actually calls himself a great detective, Mr. Natsume, not a ghost. But his diabolic deductions, they're not of this world. They've left me. Ah, cursed! I'm cursed, I tell you. Oh, that sort of hurts. Credit where credit is due, Mr. Naruhodo. You are heavily involved in the deduction, too. Yes, moving on. We have some wonderful news. Oh? The victim that we all thought was dead has come back to life again. Now, in the absolutely worst case, you could only be tried for attempted murder. That's great, isn't it, Mr. Natsume? That's terrible! Oh. I'm stuck in the cell suffering for some silly wrong end of the stick! You didn't you? Confess, you're a killer! Why the mustache? Constant questions! I'm sorry to hear that. Ah, that selfish shicer! Make up your mind. Are you dead or alive? If you're gonna come back to life, why bother dying? Wickedly wishy-washy William! Well, it seems likely that Mr. Shamspear was never actually dead in the first place. Yes, that might make sense. And I'm pleased he's alive, of course. Our lively debate last night was much fun. I'd be sad to think it was our last. Oh. Oops. Mr. Natsume, does this mean that you did see the victim last night? You met with Mr. Shamspear, didn't you? I'm not saying another word! I demand to have a lawyer present! Who do you think I am? Please, Mr. Natsume, we need to hear your side of the story. Why am I cursed like this? What if I just show you everything? Have I shown you this before, Mr. Natsume? Oh yes! The sweet, sweet aroma of our beloved homeland! Shows that the defensor is a defense lawyer. It means nothing in Great Britain, of course, but I still wear it. Oh, I know exactly how you feel, locum student, Mr. Naruhodo, Esquire. My Haramaki belly band! I don't feel right without it! Your Haramaki belly band? It's perfect for the cold English winters. Just a thing to keep my tummy warm. Yes, I see the link. Almost. Mr. Natsume, about this receipt? It occurs to me now that it was those confounded books that saw me arrested the first time, too. Oh, yes, I suppose that's true. After I spent my precious pennies on them, that's the thanks I get. Now I don't know when I'll read them. No, not when. If I may very well hate them too much to even open their covers. I don't know that we can blame the books for everything that's happened, Mr. Natsume. Yeah, okay, so this is the fake one. Bar of soap. Mr. Natsume, what do you know about this? There it is! That lathery lowlife that took my neighbor's life and spent me sliding to the depths of despair! Slippery, sickly, psychotic saboteur! You've really gone off soap, haven't you? Absolutely! And I've made up my mind. The next time someone gives me soap as a present, it's friendship finished firmly forever! I don't know that we can blame soap for everything that's happened, Mr. Natsume. Okay, he doesn't know this. Teacups. You drink one of these. Nothing. Okay. Let us converse. Can you tell us exactly what happened last night then, Mr. Natsume? There's nothing to tell! But, Mr. Naruhodo Esquire, I'm eternally grateful for you to helping me with that accursed case yesterday. The case that saw poor Miss Green hospitalized after she ended up with a knife in her back. It's hard to believe that was only yesterday. After the trial was over, I trudged my weary way back to my lowly lodgings. And that evening at past 9, it must have been, I visited Mr. Shamspeare. So you did go to the victim's room then? As we feared. I didn't do anything wrong! I'd never been to his room before! It was the first time! Then what made you decide to go? I bumped into him when I arrived back at the house. We got chatting and it developed into a discussion. But he had to go out, so I bade him farewell. That ties into what Mr. Garrideb said. The victim went out and came back after 8. We met again later that evening, around 9 or just after, when I took him some nice tea I brewed as a gift. So it was you who brought the tea that had been clearly drunk at the scene then. And I suppose you were discussing the works of Shakespeare, were you? Yes, that's right. That's exactly right. Romeo and Juliet! Who was the stronger? It was a delightful debate. I'm sure. Such a stimulating subject, Shakespeare! And the debate became very heated, so you slipped poison into Mr. Shamspeare's tea? No! Never! Not at all! Team Juliet won! That was me! And when I left the room, the flamboyant fellow was fighting fit, I swear it! Categorically! Mr. Natsume, you often say the same thing about yourself, I've noticed. That you have a cursed existence. I'm sure I've mentioned this to you before, but I've been here in Great Britain for a year now, and in that time I've learned it's no place for me. It can be very trying to live in a foreign land, and having to adapt to the ways of another culture. There are foreigners everywhere I look, and they all stare at me. They all laugh. That's the impression I get whenever I go out. It makes me scared to leave my room. Which is why I've become a recluse. But even in my room, I find no respite from my fears. I've moved more times than I can remember. And then 1 week ago, I moved into Briar Road. But why? I mean, why did you choose that place? It doesn't seem very comfortable. Because the rent is cheap. I have so little money. It spoke to me. The rent? Obviously, there's a reason why it's cheap. Because the room is cursed. Cursed? Cursed how? The previous occupant, the man who lived there before I took the room, died there. Oh no. He was only a young man, but one morning he was found dead and no one could explain why. Surely no one would want to live in a room with a history like that. Sounds like it's going to be relevant for the case. I didn't. When the letting agent recommended the place, I wavered. But I want books! And books cost money! A horrible history is a small price to pay. When I realized it would mean I could buy more books, I signed the lease like lightning. Brave or blinkered? But after I moved in, I soon came to realize what I'd done. I didn't realize how horrible that room's history really was. Gosh, was it really so awful? Horrible Histories. It's a great book series. I've got a bunch of them. How did the room's horrible history affect you, Mr. Natsume? What happened? At first, it was just a feeling. The feeling of beady eyes boring into my back, watching me. Do you think that might have just been your mind playing tricks on you? No. My mind doesn't know any tricks. It was someone else. It's been one long nightmare ever since I was given the keys to the place. A nightmare? You've been having bad dreams, you mean? Oh, all the souls who have died in that room would lean over me in my sleep and try to strangle me. That really is horrible. Are you sure that's not the cat walking over you when you're sleeping? And now that I come to think of it, it happened again last night, too. The very same night that Mr. Shamspeare was writhing in agony from the poison in his body. I was on the verge of being suffocated silently by those miserable spirits in my room. This literally could just be your cat, dude. You simply must move out of that room as soon as possible. Yes, you're right, I know it. And that's why. I'm already searching for the next room with a history to call home. I think that perhaps you should try to avoid accommodation with any kind of history at all. Otherwise, I'm scared that you might... you yourself may become history. Ugh, Susato-san knows how to make a man listen. Of course. Mr. Lord of the Manor is worried about the curse on my room as well. You mean Mr. Garadeb? Yes. He knows that if people keep dying there, he'll be able to rent it out again. Well, that's true. I, for one, wouldn't go near the place. Ah, perhaps. That may explain why the landlord pays so much attention to the gas lamps and his tenants' movements. You mean because he's worried about their well-being? He does seem to have an unusually keen interest in the amount of gas in the pipes. There must be a reason why he keeps such close tabs on the occupants of his let rooms. What do you mean he pays so much attention to the gas lamps? Oh dear, no, it has nothing to do with you, Mr. Natsume. Please, forget I said anything. Oh, now you're talking about me behind my back as well. What's important is that Mr. Shamspeare isn't in fact dead at all. Once he's come around and he's able to tell us what happened, we'll be able to get you released. Yes, please! Oh, I do hope you're right. Excuse me. Inspector Gregson. I couldn't help overhearing what you just said. And on that note, I have some good news and some bad news. Oh. What did you want first? Always, every time, the bad news comes first. When hope is all you have, hold on to it. That's my guiding principle. Alright, well, in that case, good news it is. Huh? Sorry, but it's just a lot easier to explain everything that way. Why'd you ask me my preference? As you might have heard, the victim, Mr. Shamspeare, was just unconscious. He's come around now. Yes, we saw it happen in all its terrifying glory. He's still being treated by the doctors, but we managed to get a written statement from him already. Oh, isn't that wonderful, Mr. Natsume? Oh, thank goodness. It's all over then. I can leave this somber cell. Probably not. Sorry, no. That's not on the cards. What? Why ever not, Inspector? Mr. Shamspeare has implicated someone as being responsible for what happened last night. Implicated someone? Oh dear. You don't mean... I'm sorry to say I do, yes. He's pointed the finger at you, Mr. Natsume. Ah! By sweet poison did he seeketh to end my life. That wickedst caitiff, Soseki Natsume. No! So I'm afraid you'll be appearing in court as planned. You'll be wanting to make the necessary preparations. No! And so, once again, Soseki-san found himself having to take the dock in the Old Bailey. Whether his room was haunted or whether he was just terribly unlucky, I knew I had no choice. The following day, I would represent him in court and do my utmost to break the curse that blighted him. To be continued? Yay! There it is. I imagine next is probably a second investigation segment. And then the trial. Because, yep, investigation. Oh! Wait, next is straight up the trial. Okay. Nice. Okay, we're 2 hours in. Wow, already. Now, I remember... I was just thinking maybe we needed to investigate more first, but I guess we've kind of already done all of that. In the first game, correct me if I'm wrong, all of the cases that had trials in them, so like the first two were different, but like case 3, 4, and 5 were all one investigation day and one trial day, right? I don't think they ever doubled up. I don't remember. So maybe it's different this time. All right, 2nd of February, the Old Bailey. The Old Bailey. This place always makes me feel strange. I seem to get chills down my spine and break out in a nervous sweat all at the same time. I mean, I guess I can check, right? Our good old friend Strategy Wiki. All right. I've had this strategy guide for I've had the strategy guide for the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles up on here for like months. Let's see. The Great Ace Attorney 2 Resolve. This is the Great Ace Attorney Adventures. Let me check this. Yeah. All of the previous ones had one investigation, then one trial. I mean, I guess I could take a look at the table of contents and see what this case is going to look like. Aha! It looks like... It looks like we are going to have some back and forth between investigations and trials in this one. Very nice. And they all look like they're slightly different, like it's not going to be the same structure every time. That's cool. I like that. All right. So that was a pretty straightforward, trial day, I gotta say. Alrighty. Or investigation day. Well, I didn't think I'd be back here so soon. That's my line! Good morning! Good morning, Mr. Natsume. It was only 2 days ago that I was declared not guilty here. Yes, we somehow managed to prove he didn't stab Miss Green in the back. But now this! Another morning, another murder, and here I am again in this hellhole! Can't keep coming to court! I'm gonna think he's right. It really does seem as though he's cursed. Mr. Naruhodo, I'm afraid I have bad news. Oh. Mr. Natsume, good morning. Yes, morning. So here we are again. Yes, again. He's like, she doesn't want to tell me the bad news while he's standing there. Judicial Assistant Miss Mikotoba Esquires, what's the bad news? Oh dear, you heard, did you? If you come in shouting at the top of your voice, people can't help hearing what you say! Oh, I'm sorry. You've done nothing wrong, Miss Susato. Now what is it? Well, it seems that the prosecution in today's trial will be led by Lord Barock Van Zeeks. Van Zeeks? Ah! Oh no! Oh no, no, no! This fella. The so-called Reaper of the Bailey, the most legendary prosecutor in the land. I've already beaten him twice, though. In the trial 2 days ago, he pursued Soseki-san and I relentlessly. And then I beat him again a third time in the future. Fourth time, probably. Of course, by the skin of our teeth, we managed to pull through, but still. Yeah. Perhaps Mr. Natsume's acquittal in the last trial wasn't the end of the matter, after all. Yes, I know what you're thinking. The Legend of the Reaper that says, nothing can save a person in the dock when Lord Van Zeeks is the prosecutor. Yeah. Oh no. Not even if a person is found not guilty, the accused will meet a mysterious end one way or another. And we've experienced it firsthand. With that fucker and the... yeah. Oh man, what a awful character. That was so bad. I don't think we ever, like... I forget... Oh, man, it's been too long. I need to go back and do, like, a full plot recap of the first game. Because, like, I remember a good chunk of the details. But, like, I don't think that was... I don't think that mystery was solved. Right? Like, I don't think the mystery of who set that... Or no, maybe it was? Who set that thing on fire? Was that mystery ever solved? Probably not in... Maybe not in the first game. Because I know Gina was involved. No, I think it was. It was literally the start of the second case, or the fourth case, where it was like, he died mysteriously. And then it was like, woo. But then I don't think they've mentioned why or how he's, like how that happened. And then we sort of went on and did other things. You know, too much to say, and I think you're really double checking yourself. Yeah, I figured. I mean, even if I don't, I think the fact that I didn't remember who it was probably means that I don't know yet, and it's gonna be one of the mysteries that will be solved in this game. Ah, do I have to put up with these ice-cold eyes boring into my soul again? Cursed by evil spirits, and now by the Reaper! Pair of petrifying perils, potentially. Well, if it's potentially, at least you appear to have hope, Mr. Natsume. Look, Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. Yes. I'm innocent, you have to believe me! You more than anyone now. Don't worry. I'll be your steadfast ally every step of the way in this battle. I promise. This promises to be a hard battle, I fear. Well, trial's scheduled to begin shortly. We should move into the courtroom. Let's go. Oh yes, I forgot to say. I'm afraid he won't be able to make it. Mr. Sholmes, I mean. That's probably for the best. Oh. If he were here, I might be tempted to rely on his help. And that could be seen as a weakness. If Lord Van Zieks were to notice, he'd prey on it mercilessly. At least that's my gut feeling. Mr. Naruhodo. You're right. Yes, you're so right. Oh, well said, Mr. Locum Student Naruhodo Esquire. Well said. I swear on the sword at my side, and on the spirit of Kazuma that it harbors. I'll show him what a Japanese lawyer can do. I'll set you free with honor. Oh, yes. February, Old Bailey. Oh goodness, it's the same jury every time. Aw. My sister's dog got a fur cut. It might as well be. Very cute. In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session. I now call upon the counsels for the prosecution and defense to declare their willingness to proceed. The prosecution is ready. The defense is ready, my lord. Readiness for the trial, my learned Nipponese friend, is not what the defense needs. What you need is readiness for your inevitable defeat. It's not just my imagination. It's really there. Lord Van Zieks has such an animosity towards us Japanese for some reason. Yeah, and he hasn't had the character development that he got a little bit of at the end of the last game yet. So he's still racist as hell. It was some time ago now that he first became known as the Reaper of the Bailey, I believe. These past few years, he hasn't appeared in court at all. And now he's back in the courtroom, though for some reason, only when I'm defending. This Reaper, with his curious disdain for us Japanese, is a prosecutor shrouded in mystery. Still, this isn't the time to be pondering that. I have to concentrate on Soseki-san's trial. Furthermore, I now call upon the 6 ladies and gentlemen of the jury. You have been chosen at random to represent the will of the people in this trial. Are you ready to fulfill your duty? Absolutely. I have a feeling this larrikin wasn't innocent before. I must say, I feel especially ruthless on days when my hat refuses to sit right. Oh, well, I rather like how you're wearing your hat. I think the ruthless look is very fetching, actually. I need to be somewhere at 10 o'clock. I have a very important meeting. Let's make this quick. I couldn't agree more. I need to take time home 5 bob tonight, or the missus will go through the roof. Oh, may the Lord show us all the light here, and lead his flock to a righteous verdict. The British jury system is so very different to our own, isn't it? It's quite extraordinary to think that the power of judgment is in the hands of 6 members of the public, and that the judge can only pass sentence when all jurors are in agreement about the defendant's guilt. 6 citizens of London chosen at random, or at least that's the idea. Doesn't seem to happen that randomly. The prosecution would draw attention to the fact that the accused was on trial here but 2 days ago. Accordingly, where possible, the same jurors have been asked to return for duty today. Very well, let us commence the trial. Lots of gruffy voices today. Lord Van Zieks, your opening statement, please. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, it is not the intent of the prosecution to cast doubt over your past decision. However, the innocent verdict afforded to this eccentric Nipponese before has had dire consequences. Did the accused repent for his wrongdoing in that affair? Far from it. Instead, he used his freedom to perpetrate a most blood-curdling crime. Namely, that of the attempted murder of his neighboring lodger, an innocent Englishman. To explain the circumstances of the crime, the prosecution calls its first witnesses to the stand. I don't quite remember how his voice goes, so I hope it's similar. The detective responsible for investigating the scene, and the accused himself. I'll have to listen to his objection line again and see if it's actually any similar. Witnesses, your names and occupations, please. Yes, sir. Tobias Gregson, Chief Inspector of Scotland Yard's Homicide Division. Soseki Natsume from the Empire of Japan. My government ordered me to come here as a student to study your language and culture. Mr. Natsume? Yes, my lord, sir. I'm quite sure I'm not mistaken that you swore an oath never to set foot in my courtroom again. I remember it was yesterday. The day before, in fact, my lord, but close enough. Ugh. Believe me, this is the last place I want to be. Inspector, let's hear from you first. Explain the case for the court. Right you are, sir. The incident occurred at the Garrideb household, where the defendant has lodgings. In the ground floor room of the victim, Mr. William Shamspeare. The defendant has already admitted to visiting the victim on the night in question. Mr. Shamspeare collapsed in his room as a result of poisoning by strychnine. He was found the following morning when the landlord, suspecting something was wrong, broke down the door. This means I presume that the door to the victim's room was locked at the time of the incident. Correct, my lord. It was locked from the inside, making entry to or exit from the room impossible. Not true. There were the bricks in the wall that could come out. Although the victim, Mr. Shamspeare, lives to tell tale, he very nearly didn't. The man was halfway to heaven when we first found him. I was the first officer on the scene, my lord. And I have a photographic print here that I took at the time to show how there was no... The bricks in the wall were there. So if someone did leave that way, they'd put the bricks back in. Yeah, that puddle on the floor under the gas meter is striking my curiosity. That's right. Everyone present believed that's exactly what he was. Very well. I shall accept this photographic print as evidence for the court. Okay. I don't think there's any additional details, right? Now then, Mr. Natsume. Ah, yes. As the defendant, do you have anything to say at this juncture? They're haunted by evil spirits. Good gracious, what's haunted? My lodgings! There's been a whole series of strange happenings in my lodgings. The tenant before me died in mysterious circumstances. A woman was stabbed by no one on the street outside. My neighbor was poisoned. And me, what about me? I've nearly been killed countless times. Killed, Mr. Natsume? How? Even on that fateful night it happened. When I returned from Mr. Shamspeare's room, I lit my gas stove and climbed into bed, but before long, the stove went out, and someone tried to kill me. You must always extinguish all fires before retiring for the night, Mr. Natsume. But it's so cold, my runny nose would freeze. The point is, I didn't poison my neighbor. Oh, why am I being accused of this? Why is my existence so cursed? Thank you, witnesses. I believe I have a reasonably clear picture of events. If I could raise one more point, my lord. One more conclusive point. Conclusive? Go on. Fortunately, the victim, Mr. Shamspeare, has regained consciousness after his ordeal, and he has named the true culprit. The poison consumed by the victim was administered in a cup of tea that he drank on the night in question. Tea, my lord, that was brought to the victim's room by the accused. The accused? Good grief! Order! Order! Yes, that's the crux of this whole case. If Soseki-san is innocent, then why? Why has the victim accused him? Well, Mr. Natsume, what have you to say to this accusation? That evening, yes, I did take some freshly brewed tea with me when I visited Mr. Shamspeare's room as a gift. The public water pump outside always freezes at night, so I bought bottled water specifically to make it. And this is the result! Never will I touch tea again, never! The public pump was frozen, you say? That's not information we've heard before. That will do, thank you. According to our laws, the defense must have the opportunity to cross-examine witnesses at least once. Therefore, I call on these witnesses now for a formal testimony. I presume the prosecution has no objection. None whatsoever, my lord. Good. Then you will give your account of the events on the night in question to the court now. Yes, my lord! Witness testimony. Catastrophic night. I think I'm gonna go until the until the end of part 1 of the trial. Let me see roughly how many. Okay, it's 3 cross-examinations. Okay, yeah, let's do that. Alright. It was around 9 o'clock that evening when I visited my neighbor, and I brought some tea with me as a gift. We had a heated literary debate over a nice hot drink, after which I went back to my room at around 11. My tea was completely harmless. He couldn't have locked the door behind me otherwise, could he? Strychnine takes some time to take effect on the body. People don't keel over immediately after taking it. The victim would have been perfectly able to lock the door after his guest left. The argument still stands. Yes, I see. It all seems relatively straightforward.
Excuse me, but that testimony does raise one rather crucial point, I think. Mr. Natsume claims his tea to have been harmless. Presumably, though, the teacups have been examined for traces of the poison, haven't they? Why didn't I think of that?
Well, as it happens, no. We haven't been able to.
Did I hear you correctly? Scotland Yard has failed to examine the suspect's substance? How could you have overlooked something so important? Isn't it the first thing you should have done? My learned Nipponese friend is falsely incensed. The inspector said Scotland Yard was unable to examine the tea, not that it was overlooked. Unable? Why? Simple enough. There was none left. Not a drop. Someone must have been very thirsty indeed. With current scientific techniques, it is not possible to test for poison under such circumstances. We only need a drop, but that one drop does actually have to exist, funnily enough. The lack of examination notwithstanding, it appears nothing other than the tea passed the victim's lips on the night in question. Yeah, but also, like, why is there a bar of soap on the table? I feel like that's probably something worth trying to figure out. I see. Thank you. The matter is clear. Cast your eyes over the jury, my learned friend. What? You can see it in their faces, I'm sure. The recognition of the accused guilt. Your client's fate is all but sealed. In mere moments from now, you will lose, and your compatriot will be damned for all eternity. He's right. I can feel all 6 of the jurors looking daggers at me. Whack! But I can't let them beat me down. I won't. Counsel for the defense, proceed with your cross-examination. Yes, my lord. All right. Hold it! Were you and your neighbor good friends then? No, we weren't friends. Not at all. Not at all. Never. Ever. Oh yeah, that doesn't make any sense. It says he bought some bottled water specifically for the occasion, but he wasn't planning on having tea with him that night if they'd only met in the hallway like he told us. So that's a contradiction. Eventually I'll have to get there. Simple no would have sufficed. Then, why did you decide to pay him a visit? Mr. Shamspeare fancies himself as having great literary knowledge. As fellow scholar of English literature, we find much to talk about together. Come now, no Nipponese could ever understand the finer points of English literature. And on the night in question, that was the topic of conversation as well, I presume. It was the day of my last trial when I was acquitted. I just arrived back at my lodgings when I ran into Mr. Shamspeare outside on the street. That was around 6 o'clock. We exchanged 1 or 2 pleasantries, but it soon turned into a heated discussion. He was on his way out at the time, though, so I promised to visit his room that evening at 9 to continue our debate. But did I have ill intentions? No! Not one! Not two! Not any! Not at all! Oh, so he bought some in that span of time. That makes sense. Never ever! Simple no would have sufficed, I feel. Then tell the court what did happen when you visited the victim's room. Okay. Over hot drink. Literary debate about Shakespeare's works, I think you said, didn't you? Shakespeare. Ah, very worthy topic of conversation. Oh, you know what it could be? There was no tea in his cup. That might be the contradiction here. Oh, yes, my lord. Romeo and Juliet. Who was stronger? It was a profoundly pleasurable party. Romeo and Juliet? Who was stronger? I know I'm going to regret asking this, but how did the debate go? Well, we both agreed that we would reach a conclusion more quickly with a reenactment. So we battled it out, in a Greco-Roman style, naturally. What? Mr. Shamspeare had all sorts of costumes in his room for just such a contest. So when you say a reenactment, you mean you were actually in costume? He is Romeo, I is Juliet. After a vigorous, wild tussle, I as Juliet came out on top. A victory I'll cherish forever. Happy Pride Month. I dare not imagine the terrible scene of carnage. The fact remains that it was you who prepared the tea and took it to the victim, correct? I poured the water in my room and made a pot to take with me. I had heard that he was too poor to have tea himself, you see. It's true. There was no sign of any tea leaves in the man's room. I wanted to do something nice, to be friendly. So why is everyone looking at me with such suspicion? My tea was harmless, of course it was. Do you have any basis for that statement, witness? He couldn't have locked the door behind me otherwise, could he? I think I'll just keep pressing and then think that'll be the first contradiction I try if something else doesn't come up.
Hold it!
Yes, there was not a drop of tea left in the victim's room anywhere, was there? That's correct. I think you'd never had a pot of tea before. You must have licked it dry. Pity goes all. One drop is all we need to analyze for poison. And you say that you returned home to your room at 11 o'clock, Mr. Natsume? Yes, definitely. By heaven and earth, I swear it. A landlord was able to verify that, as it happens. He confirmed that the defendant went back to his room at 11 that night. How's the landlord able to attest to this? He said it was the lamps, I believe. The lamps, Inspector. When the tenants returned to the room, started using gas. Yep, we know this. Yep. He seems to pay a lot of attention to the comings and goings of his tenants. So they had one key to Mr. Shamster's room. I know that for certain. So he must have locked the door himself from inside his room. The victim has confirmed that to be the case, yes. So I'm right. My tea was harmless. If you take poison, you die. Everyone knows that. It's not that simple. Yep. Strychnine takes some time to have the effect on the body. People don't keel over immediately after taking it. I mean, he does. He does look like he keeled over a bit. How long does it take for symptoms to appear then? Went to the corner, I was speaking to it, the yard. About 30 minutes after the poison's consumed. Then the victim suffers violent convulsions, cramping, and stiffness. Eventually dies of asphyxiation. There's a 30-minute interval between when the poison is ingested and the onset of symptoms. There's a lot of types of poison in the world, that's for sure. Oh dear, death by poisoning again. It's always so awful. 30 minutes is a long time. Certainly long enough for the victim to have locked the door behind the accused after he left. Can't deny that, and it further degrades Soseki-san's alibi. I have the medical report from the doctor who examined the victim here, my lord. Spells it out, really. The accused is the only person who could have done it. Alright, we got a report. Oh yes, I see it here. Delayed onset of symptoms. Okay, let's take a look. Ingestion of a small quantity of strychnine. Hopefully it's not like... Hopefully it's not like... he'd drink a lot of tea, so it's not small. Toxic effects, present 30 minutes after ingestion. High likelihood of it being mixed with the tea, but no sample could be obtained for testing. The poisoning incident occurred at around 1:30 a.m. on the 21st of February. Assessed from the victim's pocket watch. Seemed to have broken when the man collapsed after delayed onset of symptoms. No container for the poison was found at the scene. So, So it says he collapsed when the symptoms showed up, but he was found at the table. So how could he have like landed on the floor, broken his pocket watch, and then got back up? I mean, maybe, but that seems a little suspicious to me. Poisoning incident occurred at around 1:30. a.m. When did... There's nothing here that says when exactly he said, right? Delayed onset of symptoms, great. The victim would have been perfectly able to lock the door. Yeah, that is true. Yep. A pair of them drank together. So that is the thing. Although, if that is actually it, then
there's a way that we could have solved that without getting the additional information. Huh. We would have been able to lock the door. I mean, but you're innocent. Sweet and innocent. No. It's a slow-acting poison. So you could have drank for 30 minutes. As long as you did that, James, you could have locked the door. Oh. We drank the tea straight away. The battle over whether or not Romeo and Juliet was stronger. That came after the tea. Oh. Do you have any evidence to support that statement? In my great homeland, the Empire of Japan, we have a saying. Drink tea while it's hot. Sure, proverb will satisfy the prosecution. There's no conclusive proof to support the defendant's assertion. On the contrary, there are sufficient grounds to infer his guilt in this matter. No. Okay. Of course. Yep. I have to find an inconsistency in what the inspector is saying. Okay. We focus on the poison and the tea. Okay. Well, it certainly looks like he keeled over. Maybe that's it. Right, because it's... The victim would have been able to lock the door. Well, the pocket watch also broke. So my guess is it's either this about the pocket watch, or it's this showing that he keeled over the table. So let's save. And then present. Let's start with the picture.
Objection.
Nope. Alright. How about...
Objection.
Nope. Alright. Classic Ace Attorney moment. So, the victim would have been perfectly able to lock the door after his guest left. Maybe, are we supposed to say that he couldn't have? Look, it's one of these three things on this one, I think.
Objection.
Yeah, I don't really even know.
Objection.
Alright. The argument still stands, you say? I think not, Inspector. Come again. I think you'll find we've overlooked a very significant chronological inconsistency here. A chrono what? What do you want about? It's the time. Yeah. According to this, the victim must have consumed the poison at 1:30 in the morning, and yet the defendant left the victim's room at 11. See, I didn't remember that. I didn't remember when he left. Ah! Yes, that's right. There's more than 2 hours of missing time there. In other words, if there was poison in the tea that Mr. Natsume brought to the victim's room, how could the victim have fallen ill to it 2.5 full hours after the defendant left? Ah! Zeeks' argument is entirely reasonable. How do you respond, Lord Van Zeeks? With some wine, clearly. Pray forgive the discourtesy if my mind has wandered. I was considering what cuisine would best complement the contents of my hallowed chalice this luncheon. How could it have happened, you ask? I do hate to shatter illusions, but my Nipponese friend appears to be chasing a phantom idea. Phantom? Is it so hard to imagine that the victim drank his tea after the accused had left? For example, at the time stated in the medical report. Yes, around 1:30.
Objection!
Mr. Natsume brought the tea with him to drink together with his neighbor. And in Japan, there's a well-known saying, drink tea while it's hot.
Objection!
Objection! Okay, that's it. And in my country, there's an even more apt saying. There is nothing more refreshing than cold tea. The point is, if there was such a long gap, there may be other ways to explain how the victim came to be poisoned, other possibilities. What sorts of possibilities, Counsel? Well, for example, the man could have had another visitor. Another visitor. That's a very bold assertion, my learned friend, from someone who has nothing to substantiate it. Or the victim could have taken the poison of his own volition. I suggest this might have been a suicide, Counsel.
Objection!
Mr. Shamspeare has categorically denied suicide. The idea can and must be discounted.
Objection!
but he could be lying. Something wrong, Lord Van Zeeks? I was listening to the sound of a carriage pulling up outside the courtroom. Pray, forgive the discourtesy. Carriage? What carriage? It would seem that the key player in this case has just arrived. Where is he? Out, out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow. A poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Who, sir, are you? William Shamspeare, my lord. Alas, 'twas I, undone by these bitter events. I am the victim. What? What's he doing here? I mean, it makes sense. The prosecution seeks to call this gentleman to the stand. With this testimony, my learned friend's futile resistance will be utterly crushed. You're calling him as a witness? Very well, counsel. I grant your request with interest. I'm curious to discover what the court shall hear from the victim himself. Happy am I, Shamspeare, to regale thee with the tale of woe, my lord. But I still have my own tale to tell, my own tale of worse woe. I can regale the court with the tale of my perfect innocence in perfect English. That will do, Mr. Natsume. Let the court now hear from the victim. Oh. Alright, so that's Mr. Shamspeare. Who's that other man beside him? Yes, I feel sure we've caught a glimpse of that man before. State your names and occupations for the court, please, witnesses. I might actually hop off in a sec, so when they start the cross-examination, I'll boot out, I think.
A writer of words so sweet, they do scent the breeze. An inventor of ideas so profound, they compose the earth. The unrivaled poet, the unmatched scribe William Shakespeare, were the great bard to be recalled to life anew. Lo, what a magnificent man. Good fellows, I am he who ponders such a miracle, William Shakespeare.
I work for the Altamont Gas Company, East End branch office.
Oh, I remember now. It was yesterday on Briar Road. Oh yeah, she's right. It's him. It's this. Yeah, it's this thing. Just trying to sneak into Soseki's lodgings. Something wrong? Excuse me, can we have a word? Ah. He vanished into thin air. Yes, I spotted him outside Mr. Garadeb's yesterday. He's a gas company employee? What's he have to do with the case? Mr. Shamspear, you're the victim of this miserable affair, correct? Oh heaven, oh hell, do you command me to remember? That sweet poison that did cross me and cross mine innocent lips.
I subpoenaed him for the trial, with his doctor's permission, naturally.
Hearing the testimony of the aggrieved will remove any room for doubt for the jurors' minds, I'm sure. Behold, you have only to rearrange the letters of my name to see that me's a seraph, an angel indeed. Thus be I noble of mind, sweet of nature, and verily honest of heart, as all heavenly angels be.
Because there isn't a less contrived meaning in your name. No, not at all.
The jurors seem to be very moved by this man, I'm afraid. They're actually taking this seraph anagram idea seriously.
Thank you, witnesses, for your illuminating introductions.
My lord, what's the man next to Mr. Shamspear doing here? The gas man, I mean.
Me? Well now. Allow me to enlighten my learned friend. You recall, I presume, your earlier impertinence? When you suggested that the victim had another visitor to his room on the night in question. And moreover, that the victim is a compulsive liar.
What? No, I didn't quite say that.
This young chin-stroker here is to controvert your wild claims conclusively. Is that not so, Mr. Meterman?
Hang on, no, I'm just here.
I hereby call for your formal testimonies. You will tell the court as lucidly as possible what happened on the night in question.
And we'll do that next time. I need some food in me. Ugh. Alrighty. Oh, it's nice to get back into the swing of things. And I think this was a good case to, like, come back to it after a long time away. Because, you know, it's basically reintroducing the whole, like, primary setting of the game again, you know. So, it's nice to just get a quick recap about all that stuff. Thanks for joining me in chat, Wendy. Appreciate it. And next stream will probably be Portal again. I might be able to do that tomorrow. We shall see. Okay. Peace.